Okay, it is 11:31 on Tuesday, January 22nd in sunny Santa Barbara. And today we are going to have a little bit more of an advanced conversation about one of the sort of most powerful features that Ontraport offers to our pro clients. This is a pro-only feature, although there are parts of this feature that are available in Plus accounts. So, I know that many of you have heard of custom objects. You have a sense that maybe they're something that might be valuable in your business, but aren't sure exactly what it is and certainly may not be sure exactly how to use it. So I'm going to talk about, why we built this feature, and then kind of just run through an example of how to put some custom objects together in a kind of real life style use case. So custom objects, let's see now. What is a custom object? Well, let's just start by talking about data storage in general. In Ontraport, we store, if you sign up for an Ontraport account, what you're going to see is the primary way of storing data is in contacts, and in many businesses that is the main thing that you want to store, and maybe it's the only thing you want to store if you have a relatively simple business. And you want to store, of course, information about a particular contact and a bunch of particular contacts. And so what we would consider this to be, we would consider contacts to be an object. And this is kind of a geeky engineering term, but that's just kind of what it is. And so contact is an object. You can think of it like, a file, maybe. And you would, in a file, keep a record of each one of the contacts that has come in touch with your business. And so you wouldn't want to mix up different types of things in a particular file. You want to keep all of your contacts in that particular file. And of course, you'll have a slip of paper for each contact, and the paper has space to store their name and their last name and their email and their title and their company name and all this stuff. And that we would consider to be a record, a contact record, one item that goes in the contacts file, or in our language, the contacts object. And so that's kind of how Ontraport works right out of the box, is that you have kind of one file. And, of course, we have other files. We have files for your pages too. This is a collection of your landing pages. But in terms of like record keeping in your business, it's really contacts, right? And of course, you can customize the data that you store about a particular contact by going into the contact settings and editing the fields here, the field editor, and you can customize everything about the information you store about each individual contact. And again, for many businesses, that's enough. But when let's take, for example, the most common sophistication of businesses, and that is when you start selling to other businesses. B2b sales is a very common way of using a CRM system. It's a common use case. And so in B2b sales, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, you're a business, you're selling to another typically bigger business, and say you are, you make, electronic components and for cell phones, and maybe you make antennas and you make chips and you make cases, screens, and your customers are companies like Motorola, and is Motorola even still a company? Jesus. Google, Google is your customer, and Samsung is your customer, and Apple is your customer, and what you find is that you don't just the sale isn't as simple as it is for some of us, right? For some of us, we just a customer, prospective customer comes to our website, and we sell to that customer. And that's just the long and short of it. We capture them as a lead, and we market to that lead, and we sell to that lead, and we follow up with that lead, and the whole thing, right? It's kind of one contact record is how our company works. But if you're, making cell phone components and you're selling to Google and Apple and whatever, then you're going to find out that it isn't that simple. In fact, you're going to find out that when you go to sell, $10 million worth of screens, that there are more than one person. There's more than one person that's interested in having a say in how that deal goes. So you're not just selling to one person. You might be selling to a whole team of people. There might be 10 people or 20 people that are involved in that deal. And not only that, you might at the same time be having more than one negotiation. You might be trying to sell them $10 million worth of screens, and also maybe a separate department at Google is trying to buy $3 million worth of antennas. And that might be a whole different group of people that you're talking to and a whole different sales process. And so, when you have that kind of setup, it's important to be able to keep track. Just like any business, you need to be able to keep track of your where things are at in your business, and having one contact record, it's impossible to keep track of that level of sophistication. And so that's why in a traditional B2B CRM system, you will see kind of out of the box more than one object or more than one record type. And so in Ontraport, you can come in here in administration. And I think this is maybe a plus feature and above, but you can go in here. Did you know that you can search? I think I talked about this last week. Let's see, deals. So it's in advanced features. So you can turn on this concept of deals, and you can turn on this concept of companies. These are separate objects. You can think of them like a separate file. And in the file called companies, you might have a different record for each company that you may deal with. You'll have a record that's called Google, and one that's called Samsung, and one that's called Apple. And then you might have a third file, and it might be called deals. And these are the deals that you're working on. Again, we call these objects. So you'll have a deals object. And when you turn these things on, you get these two new menu items up top. And you'll see they just look just like contacts, because they are just like contacts. They work almost in every way just exactly like contacts does. And you can begin to keep records of individual deals that you're working, and individual companies that you're working with, and then individual contacts in those companies that you're talking to. And this now starts to make a lot more sense. You're like, okay, I can start to see how my business makes more sense when I have 3 files instead of one. And then you'll quickly realize that you have another need. You need to not just have a file for a deal and a company and a contact, but you'll need to be able to relate a deal and a company and a contact together in different ways. For example, if you go to a deal, it's cool to be able to have a record that says, I'm trying to sell $10 million worth of screens to Google or whatever. But what you want is to be able to click on this record and dive into the record and actually see, well, who are my points of contact with this deal? Who am I talking to? And have a list of people that are related to this particular deal. You also want to be able to have the company. For example, it's Glozen in this case, and so now we have a related company, and so what you'll see is that I can, if I could relate my deals and my companies and my contacts together in certain ways, then I can really get a holistic picture of how my business is working. So for example, you would want to be able to come to, a company record, open up your file, pull out a record for Kimmy's Nutrition here, and then be able to see very quickly, which deals are being worked on or have been worked on in the past related to Kimmy's Nutrition, and also who are the contacts that I know of that work for Kimmy's Nutrition, right? Who are the people that work for this company? And then, if you go to a contact, you'd probably want to be able to click on a contact and be able to see you want to see what company they work for, and you'd probably want to see what deals that you're working on them with, right? And so typically, any CRM system and any B2b oriented CRM system. So I'm talking about Salesforce and Pipedrive and Dynamics and any of the sort of B2B oriented sales CRMs are going to have a setup like this, where you have contacts and companies and deals. They may call them opportunities instead of deals. We call them deals because it's a shorter word, and we didn't want to put opportunities up in the menu item there. But you can certainly change that, because Ontraport is infinitely customizable. You could go in and change the name of that. But let's see here. One of the things as you start thinking about how these items relate to each other is you'll begin to notice that they don't all relate to each other in the same way. So, for example, it's probably reasonable in most cases to assume that a particular person works for one company, right? They have one company that they work for, and on the other hand, any particular company may have many people working for it, and so it turns out when you begin to think about this that there are different types of relationships that different records may have to each other, and the kind of relationship that the records have to each other is important because it determines the way that it shows up in your filing cabinet, in your Ontraport account, in your CRM system, and it determines the way that you interact with those records. So the relationship between companies and contacts is one that we call a one-to-many relationship, and that is, it's funny actually that we call them parent and child in a one-to-many relationship. And we didn't, here at Ontraport, we didn't make that up. Again, this is a data, an engineering kind of thing. But it is what that's called. It's a one-to-many relationship, and the relationship is they say that one is the parent, and then there are children. It's funny because of course we all have two parents, hopefully, at least we did at one point. But in this case, we're going to pretend that you only have one parent, and that a parent may have many children. And so in this case, companies is the parent, right? Because there's only one of them, and contacts is the children, and so that's a one-to-many relationship between companies and contacts. And so it's important that we get that relationship right, because like I said, it determines how these things show up in your record keeping system. So when I go to a contact record, I'm looking at a contact now, and you look at the record, and I want to find or set the company, like this person works for, in this case, Allie's World. What that's going to look like is it's going to look like a drop-down field, because there's only one of them, and you just got to pick which one they work for, right? They work for Cha-Cha or Glow Zen or Gotham Products. I have no idea who put these in my account here. But Merry Day's Delight, Optimus Happy. All right. So Optimus Happy is the parent now, the company that ASDF here works for. And that makes sense. So if you're not working for Optimus Happy and you go get a new job, I can change it. And now you work for GlowZen. So that makes good sense. Now, if you go to the company record, you're going to discover, and it makes, again, if you think about it, perfect sense that when you look in here, it's not going to be a single drop-down field because there might be a whole bunch of people that work for this company, right? And so in a one-to-many relationship, if you go to the parent and you look for where the kids live in the record-keeping system, they live in a situation that's like this. And we call this in Ontraport a sub-collection. So this is a collection, right? This is the collection of records, like a file. And then if you click inside, this is a sub-collection. So you will have, multiple related contacts. And so you'll have a list of them, and it works, just like a collection. You can move the columns around and you can reorder them, by dragging them around, and you can delete them and you can add new columns, and all the stuff you do in a collection, you can do in a sub-collection pretty much. You can even select them and take actions, send an email or whatever. So very similar to collections. But this is a sub-collection. This is the list of contacts that work for Kimmy's Nutrition. And now, so hopefully that makes sense. I'm going to get to questions in a minute. I appreciate that there's some people here that may have some things to ask, but I'm going to just kind of keep my train a rolling here, and we'll get to the questions in a minute. Okay. So the relationship between companies and contacts is a one-to-many relationship, and the parent in this case is the company. Now, let's think about the relationship between contacts and deals. So we already determined the relationship between contacts and companies, but let's think about the relationship between contacts and deals. Well, again, this is all set up by default when you turn these on, so you don't need to think about this, but we're going to actually, I'm kind of using this example to describe how this stuff works, and then we're going to go through a completely different example and set up our own relationships, and I'll show you how that is done. So let's think about contacts and deals. Well, what do we know? We know that if we're talking about, if we're selling parts of a cell phone to people at Google and Apple and Samsung, that there may be one person that we're talking to that is involved in more than one deal at a time, right? And also we know, so there's a mini relationship there, right? That in contacts, you wouldn't want to lock a contact into only working one deal, because you might have, a purchasing agent that works at Google, and they might work on every deal, or the accounting person, along with various people from other teams. You never know what the mix-up might be. So for sure, contacts can work on many deals at once. Now, on the flip side, deals, if you think about a particular deal, well, yeah, a deal might have many people that you need to keep track of that have a say in whether or not this purchase gets made. And so that's also a many relationship. And so the relationship between deals and contacts is different than the one between contacts and companies. It's, in this case, what we call a many-to-many relationship. So with companies and contacts, it was a one-to-many relationship. With deals and contacts, it's a many-to-many relationship. And that's important, because when you click into a deal and you go look at the related contacts, what is it? It's a sub-collection of related contacts. It's a whole list of them, right? Sub-collections are how we list, records in Ontraport. So it's related contacts show up as a list, and if you want to add a person to this deal, you just go ahead and select one, or you can create a new one. Select an existing contact. You can search here. Maybe we have some Johns. We do. Or you can create a new one. Either way, that's how you create a related contact and relate it to this particular deal. Now, if we were to go to the contact, I just clicked on the top one there, Timothy Redkin. If we were to go to the contact, because this is a many-to-many relationship, we look at related deals. And again, it's a sub-collection. It's a list of deals, not a single item, like the company name is. Okay, now then, we have a many-to-many relationship that we've discussed. We have a one-to-many relationship that we've discussed. And of course, you'll guess that there's also a third relationship type, and that is a one-to-one relationship type. It's not used as often. I'm probably not going to even cover it today. I think that if you get your heads wrapped around one-to-many and many-to-many relationships, that one-to-one relationships will just kind of automatically make sense to you. Now, one of the things that would be convenient, you'll find out if you start to set this stuff up, is that, if I could see some of the information from related records in my other filing boxes. So for example, say I go to, I realize I need to send a package to Timothy Redkin here. And I don't know much about Timothy Redkin. I'm in shipping or whatever. I need to send it to Timothy Redkin. Well, and Timothy Redkin works at, well, you haven't decided. Let's call it Allie's World. Let's call it. Let me see if I can find one that's. Oh, let's actually go with Allie's World. Okay. Timothy Redkin works, I find out. I need to look up Timothy Redkin to find out where to send the package. And I find out, oh, they work at Allie's World. Now, I could then, of course, go to another file, go to the company's file and look up Allie's World and find the company address. But it would be easier if the company address just automatically showed up. I mean, these are computers after all, right? It would be easier if the company address just showed up right here in Timothy Redkin's record. And it would be best if it wasn't, unique fields like these. So these are fields that live in the contact record. So I can just type in here, this is Timothy's address. But wouldn't it be cool if we had the company address and the company address was actually updated to reflect where Timothy works, because people change jobs and we make relationships with, maybe Timothy's an important buying agent and he goes from Allie's World over to Borchacha. And I need to keep track of Timothy, but I don't want to have to go and figure out, okay, now where's Timothy's company address and update that. I've already got a record for Borchacha. I already know where Borchacha lives. And it would be nice if I could, just have that show up when Timothy, when the information that, changes. For example, maybe Borchacha moves their headquarters. And I wouldn't want to have to go find all the employees for Borchacha and update all their individual records. I just want to go to this is why I have a whole file for companies, is so that I can keep that information in one place, right? So what do we do? We have an address here that's 123 Borchacha, actually is what this is, Borchacha Way. And we're gonna just save that and then go back. I just updated it because I have that information. And look, that automatically showed up here in Timothy's record. And if I change where Timothy works, it says here, you're about to change the relationship from Borchacha to Allie's World. Are you sure? If I change that, and look, boom, the company address that's related here changes. This is now where, ASDF is where Allie's World is. And I go back to Borchacha and boom, that's going to update again. If I want to go check out this company information, I can just click on it and it's going to take me over to Borchacha. I find out that they moved to, World Way. I save that. I go back. And that information is going to be updated not only in Timothy's record, but in every employee's record that works at Borchacha here. So we don't have any others, but if I were to, if there were more, it would work that way. So that's a cool piece of functionality. And the way that we do that, I'm going to show you more about how we set up all these relationships and stuff. But the way that we set that up is actually in the field editor itself. So we go to the field editor, update. This is company address. We can have, maybe we want company phone, but this is a particular field type. It's called related object data. And the what I would want to do here is go to company to the company object. So these are the related fields, and then go to, maybe I want to have their their phone number, right? Company phone. That would make sense to have. I add that there, and I save it, and that's going to always, kind of go with that relationship now. And if I go back to the contact records, just give it 1 second. It's got to update the whole field map here. Give it a moment. I hope we've done this right. Oops, that's not right. Let's not do that. I have to refresh this sucker. Hopefully that worked. If we go back to this sucker and we look here, and there it is. Company phone is there. And if I select the, one of these guys, if ASDF here had a company phone, it would show up here. And you'll notice that it shows up in another color, and that's just to let you know that this is not this is not coming from this record. It's coming from, a related record here. So important to know. But if you click on it, you'll go to the related record, and you can update it there. So interesting functionality. Great way to be able to track data the way that your company actually tracks and organizes data. I'm going to show you a particular use case right now, and we're going to kind of set it all up. So again, deals in companies are sort of default objects that we've created for you. We've created all the relationships for you, and you can just turn them on and off. If you're a Plus user, you can turn them on and use them. If you're a Pro user, you can turn them on and you can mess with them because they're just like every other object. You can add new relationships and do whatever you want. And if you're a Pro user, you can actually go in here and create brand new objects and create new relationships and get the whole thing done. So let us now think about a new use case and start from scratch. So the easiest one that I always go to is imagining that you're a veterinarian, and you're a veterinarian and you work on all sorts of different kinds of animals. You work on birds and dogs and cats and horses, and you figure out really quickly that people who are animal lovers, and they don't just have one pet, they have many pets, and it doesn't work very well. I mean, you could, if you had some other system, you might have to go in here and edit your contact record and make fields for like pet 1, pet 2, pet 3, and then pet 1 type and pet 2 type and pet 3 type and pet 1 name and pet 2 name and pet 3 name. But it becomes very cumbersome if they have maybe more than 3, or if you want to do anything with that data. Because imagine, for example, that you want to keep your vet, right? You got to keep records of what you do to each particular animal, right? Maybe you are into neutering animals, or you're into clipping their toenails, or you're into I don't know what you do. You prescribe them medication, and you want to keep a record of each of that, each of those interactions that you have. But you really want to be able to keep a record of each interaction on a per animal basis, right? You wouldn't want to have there be any confusion between what you did to somebody's horse and what you did to their bird, right? And so trying to jam all that information into a particular contact record really doesn't make sense. And so you really want to be able to organize your business and your record keeping according to the reality of life, which is that you have owners and you have pets and you have, let's call them procedures. And these are three different unique things that if you pulled a piece of paper out, you'd keep completely different records about each one, right? An owner is a person, and a person has an email address. A pet doesn't have an email address. Their person has an email address. And so you'd want the owner record, and they have an email address, and they have a credit card. That's important. And they have, a home address and a name and a phone number. And what else do they have? Well, they have a list of pets that they own, right? And so you can begin to imagine all of a sudden that the parent-child relationship makes actually really good sense in this case, right? The owner is the parent, and they might have many kids. They might have a horse and a cat and a bird and 6 dogs. And so those would all be the children. And so if you were to go into a owner record, you would want to have a list of all of that person's pets. And maybe the person one day might sell their horse, and you would want to then be able to change the relationship that horse has with its owner to a new owner, and not have to mess with that contact record, right? So, and have the entire history of procedures, say, or appointments that has happened to that horse go with the horse when the horse gets sold to a new owner. So this is lots of good reasons to use custom objects to set this relationship up. Now, if you think about the particular animal, well, an animal might have several appointments, right? If you're taking care of a horse has a bunch of stuff you have to do to it over the course of its life, and you'd want to have a list of, if you're looking at the pet or the animal record, in that record you'd want to see a field that was called owner, right? So you'd be able to quickly know who owns this thing, and you'd also want to see a list of procedures, that have, or appointments, or whatever you want to call them, that have, taken place with regard to this particular animal. And what would the procedures, what would you record on that? Every time, the horse walks into your office, you pull out a piece of paper and you say, okay, it's horse, it's the date, it's, what kind of procedure I'm doing. I'm doing I don't know, I'm clipping its nails, or I'm putting shoes on, or whatever I do. So there's a type, maybe there's some notes about what you did. Maybe there's, who knows what there is. So you're going to want to create between owners and pets. There's going to be a one-to-many relationship. Between pets and procedures, there's also going to be a one-to-many relationship, because one pet may have many procedures, but hopefully a particular procedure only has to do with one pet. But then you might want to be able to go to a particular owner and see the relationship between the owner and the procedures, and that might be another kind of relationship, right? So let's just get through. We may not get through all this today, but let us, kind of get started. Now, we could create a completely different object for owners, right? We could go and create a new owner. Every time we create a new object, it's going to show up here in our, it's going to show up just like this. It's going to have its own campaigns, its own rules, its own forms, messages. The reason for that is that, for example, say we want to automate a marketing program around pets' birthdays. We find out when the pet was born, and we want to say, hey, it is, Fluffy's birthday coming up. Maybe you should bring them in for a, fluff and fold. And of course, you would want to be able to automate that around the pet's record, the pet's birthday. And so you would have a pet campaign that does that. Now the pet remember, doesn't have an email address. So when it comes time to send an email, you will send that email to the pet's owner, not the pet itself. And we'll show you how to do that. But that's why this thing will have, each object has its own campaigns and messages and settings in here. You'll want to set up the field record. So we could make a whole new object for owners, but we're not going to. We're going to use contacts as the owners in this case. And the reason for that is that contacts in Ontraport do actually have a couple of special powers. And the primary one is that they can have a credit card and be charged money. And other objects cannot currently be charged money. And so you, in this case, since it's a person and they're going to be paying you, you want to use contacts as that. Let's see, data, custom objects. Here we go. You want to use contacts as that primary thing. Now you can go in here and actually change. So sorry, I'm going a little fast. I went to administration, and I went to data, and then I clicked custom objects. And here we have a list of the objects. And this projects one has been hidden, something I was playing with. You could create, that's another use case. You can create projects here. But here's the contacts object. You can actually change this to owners, and then we want to know how to refer to these things appropriately, because we can't always guess. So OWNER, and we do guess. So we can you just got to correct us if we're wrong here. So possessive, plural possession. Usually we get that right, but there are some unique ones where that wouldn't work. So we give you the option to update that. If I just save that, what you'll see here is that boom, contacts has changed to owners. Nothing else about it has changed, but we've changed the name of that thing. So that's cool. Now let's go back to custom objects, and we're going to create a new object. Now this is a little complicated. I'm not going to lie. And that's why we're doing this video right now. So we're going to name the new object. Should we call it pets? Let's call it pets. And the singular is pet, and the plural is pets, and the possessive is pets, and the plural possessive is pets. That all looks good. So we're going to go next. Now, what do we get next? What we get next is the field editor. And so this is now, the system is asking us, well, what? Now you just created a new file called pets, and there's going to be pieces of paper in that file. They're each going to be called pet records. What do you want to store on each one of those pieces of paper, right? And there's a couple things here that are automatically here, campaigns and tags. You can't do without those because that's how the system works. There's a few system fields that, again, you can't do without. We won't even let you delete these. There's pet history, which is the pet contact log, the automation log. Can't do without those. Notes and tasks. All these things are built into the record. But there's a couple things that are missing here, right? Like, for example, the pet's name. So let's create a new section. Pet info, we're going to call it. And we're going to just maybe drag this to the top, and then we will add a field called name, and it'll be a text field, and it's not unique or, well, we can make it required, and that's cool. I want to have a name for the pet. Okay, cool. And then we want to have a pet type. That'll be a drop down. Animal, like what? Not breed, animal type, right? Animal type. And so we'll say it's horse and dog and cat and bird. Okay, and we can require that too if we want to. And we can do other things. We can go to town on this if we want to. Maybe make a date and see if we can get their birthday. Oops, birthday. Save. And okay, shoot, we can do whatever we want. We can get their preferred pronouns in here. Whatever we want to store. But we're going to just stop right there and go with we'll go with moving on. We'll always be able to come back and edit and change that record just like you can with a contact record. You know, always update the record type or the fields that are in the field editor there. So no problem. Just, you know, toss a few in there for now. Now, we could skip this. We don't have to create relationships with other fields. We could just create a new file and have it be completely unrelated to any other record. And we could even come back and change these relationships later if we wanted to. But since we're doing it, we're going to create a new relationship. And so it's going to ask some questions. It's going to ask a bunch of questions. They're sometimes confusing, but you're in the right place at the right time, because I'm going to explain to you what all the questions mean right now. Okay, it's asking you, pet is related to what? Well, it's related to owners. That's what we're gonna do, right? And it's gonna ask you, what sort of relationship is this? We've already talked about this. One to many, many to many, one to one. In this case, it's a one to many relationship. Okay, because there's one owner, many pets. Now the pet is, which one? Is the pet the parent or the child? Well, that's a good question. In this case, it's the child. Now the question's all changed here. It's fine. Okay, here comes the tough ones. Where should we put the other object in the pet's record? Look, we tried to figure out how to say this in a way that made some freaking sense. This is what we came up with. So what it's asking you is, there's going to be a field in the pet's record, right? And it's going to say something like owner. And it's asking you, where do you want us to put that field in this record? And so it's giving you a list here of the sections where we can drop that field. You can actually just drop it anywhere, because this is editable later, but you got to put it somewhere. And so we're going to put it in pet info, because that would be wise to have it there, right? The pet info, who's the owner? That's an important piece of information. You want that right up front. And then it's asking you the opposite question. Where should we put the pet in the other objects record, in the owner, right? So now, it's gonna have you're gonna in the owner record, there's gonna be a list of pets, right? And so this is asking you which tab you want us to put the sub collection of pets into. All right, so we've got all these different tabs, and we're just gonna pop it into the contact information one. This should, maybe we should go back and change that to owner information if we really want to go with this, but we're not going to do that right now. Okay, now we want some names. So these next questions are, so what should we call this relationship in the pet record? So it's asking you what the field name should be for this thing called owner, and we're going to call it owner. This isn't rocket surgery. We're just calling it owner, because it's going to give us a list of owners, and we should call it that. And then what do we call this relationship in the owner record? So what it's going to be a list of animals that this person owns, and so we'll call it pets. Pretty obvious, right? So we're saving that. Oh, field name with owner already exists. Darn it. What should we call this? We can't have it two fields with the same name in Ontraport, so we're going to come up with something different, challenging. We'll call it current owner. Fine. Boom. And now we have a relationship between a one-to-many relationship between owners and pets, which is this relationship, and this object is the child of owners, and on we go. Now, how would you like to display these records? Okay. This also seems a little confusing, but it is what it is. So when you, for example, you're looking at a contact record and you see that there's a record called company, right? There's a field called company, and next to it is a drop-down field. And when you click on that drop-down field, you're going to see a list of somethings, right? And what we're asking you here is, what do you want to see a list of? You could see a list of telephone numbers right there, of those companies' telephone numbers, but that wouldn't be super helpful because you don't know the company's telephone numbers off the top of your head. So what you put here is the company name, because that's what you want to see is the company's name. Sometimes you're going to want to see, for example, in some cases where you're making a relationship with contacts, you might want to see the contact's first name, last name, and their email address. And so you would set that up here as merge fields. So in this case, this is going to be really simple. We're just going to say name. It's the pet info. It's the pet's name. And that's what we're going to have as a list. And you could, if you want, maybe it would make sense actually if you're going to have a bunch of fluffies, maybe you put the owner's name in there too. And so we could do that. And we'll show you. In fact, let's do that. So we're drilling into owner, and then we're going to say first name, and then owner, last name. So now it's going to say Fluffy, and then owned by John Doe. It's going to say dash John Doe. And we could actually say owner colon John Doe. Oh, cool. That's what that's going to do. And then here in the navigation, it's just asking us where we want to put this sucker. And we'll put it next to owners. And then we can add the icon. It's got a little person there, but we're going to put a little dog instead. Okay. Now it's pets, and we can change the color of this thing. Dogs are brown. Okay. And that is the long and the short of it, people. Look at this. Boom. There it is. Pets, brown, little dog. Up in the navigation menu, I click on pets, and I don't have any pets yet. I'm going to create one. And here it is, just like we said. Name is Fluffy. Fluffy. The animal type is dog. The birthday is in the future. No, in the past, just a few days ago. And the current owner is, what do we have here? This should be, here we go. There's a lot of owners here. We're going to say John, and boom, that John is now the owner. This is an example of why you would want to have, maybe better, information here in the dropdown, because what the heck, we have like how many Johns. All right, so we're going to go with ASDF. That is the current owner. And now, we might have notes. We want to organize this, but now we have and look at what it says here, by the way. Fluffy, owner, Landon Ray. Did I do that right? Owner, Landon Ray. No, I didn't. I'm going to have to fix that somehow. I got the wrong owner there. I got the wrong owner there. I set that up wrong. I did the the user in my system. This is like the owner of like my sales rep, like the contact owner. So I chose the wrong one there in that merge field. So I'm gonna have to go back and fix that. Darn it. But I'm gonna do that later. Now we've got a list of our pets. I'm gonna put the name here instead of the ID as the primary thing. And there's Fluffy. I don't care about the ID, so I'm gonna delete that. I don't care about the IP address. I'm going to delete that. So now I've got the owner. I'm going to change this to current owner. That's the one I wanted. And ASDF is there. And now look at this. I'm going to want, say I look up Fluffy real quick. Fluffy gets lost. Somebody walks in with Fluffy and is like, damn it. I don't know who, the tag says Fluffy, but I don't know, who the person is. I'm going to look up Fluffy in my pets record, and I want to find Fluffy's owner's name real quick. And so I can go to current owner, and that would be their name right there, just like what this is. But I can drill into current owner and put their phone number. I can search here, phone, office phone, boom. And now I've got ASDF's office phone here. And notice that the color is orange, and that's telling me this is the current owner's office phone, not Fluffy's office phone. And then date modified, if I want to leave that there, that's fine. And so now I've got this relationship. Of course, if I go to ASDF, I can click that little thing. Hey, did you see that, by the way? when you have a related record like that, sometimes you'll see this little guy. If you click that icon, you're going to go to the ASDF record. And here we have now at the bottom of this thing is Fluffy, the list of pets. And man, our situation is looking pretty good now. Now, again, this is getting long. I could go on and create another object called procedures. That would be a one-to-many relationship with pets, and it would basically work just the same as what I did here. And you'd end up with a list of I can click Fluffy. You would end up here with a list of procedures that Fluffy's gone through. You can add a new procedure. You can have procedure types. Now, so I'm not going to do that right now, just because I think hopefully I've made my point. We're getting long here, but I do want to just show you one thing here, and we're going to make that birthday campaign. So new campaign, and this is going to be Pet's birthday campaign. Okay, and we're just going to close this one off, and we're going to say this trigger is going to be birthday. Oops, no, it's field. Field is updated, and birthday is so when birthday is updated, the pet's going to get added to this. Any pet in your account is going to get added here when the birthday is updated. And now what are we going to do? We're going to wait for a while. What are we going to wait for? We're going to wait for a date relative to a pet's date field. So we're going to wait for 7 days before the pet's birthday, and we're going to ignore the year because the pet's birthday is in 2019, but we actually want to send this, every year, 2020, 2021, 22. So we're going to ignore the year. It's just going to fire off 7 days before this birthday, regardless of what year it is, and then that's all. And then we're going to send an email, okay. And that is going to be the long and short of it. We could send more than one email, of course, but we're going to leave it at that. So what is the email going to say? We're going to create a new message because this pet we don't have any messages in the pet object yet. This is important to do. I'm just going to add one more thing. Actually, we don't need to do an end there. We're actually going to do a go to here. Why? Because we want to run this thing every year. So we're just going to take this sucker and move it back up and connect it here. So what's going to happen? It's going to wait until 7 days before. It's going to, maybe whatever. We should probably put a time in there so we don't send an infinite number of emails all at once. So we'll wait until, let's see, what should we do? Actually, let's not do it that way. Let's delete this item. Let's do it in here and wait until the time of day is 10 a.m. Okay, good. Wait until 10 a.m. and then boom, the email's going to send, and it's going to wait here until 10 a.m. And it'll have to wait a whole another year. So they'll sit here until the next year comes by, and then another email will be shot off. Okay, so what does this email look like? We're going to need to create a new message. Pets birthday discount. All right, we're going to save and edit this. So we're going to go and create a new Ontramail. Start from scratch. And we're going to add a block here. And so we're going to just, throw together an Ontramail. I'm just going to put this on there for now. What I really want to show you is the settings, because when you turn on custom objects, you get a new field here that's called send email to. And some people, if you're used to just sending it to contacts, you're like, well, I'm sending it to the contact, duh. But when you have a more sophisticated record keeping system, there may be a whole number of different email addresses you might want to send a particular email to. For example, if you're keeping students, in your system, you might want to send it to the student, but you also might want to send it to the student's teacher. You also might want to send it to the student's parent. You might want to send it to the student's friends. Who knows what you might want to do. And so in this case, we're going to find out that the the pet, of course, doesn't have an email address. There is no email field in the pet record. So what this thing is doing is it's running through the relationships that this pet has, and it's giving me the email addresses that the system finds in those relationships. So owner, this is a little bit confusing because there's a thing called owner that's already built into Ontraport. That's how I even got confused. And that is the record owner, right? It's the user in your system. It's probably you or one of your sales reps. And so each owner has a record. I'm sorry. Each record has an owner. And so that's what this owner email is. And so that would send it to the contact's owner. So say, for example, you run a veterinarian shop that has 10 vets that work at it. And so each pet might have a vet that it is assigned to. And that would be a perfect use for that field right there, the owners. So each vet would be a user in Ontraport, and they would show up as possible owners, and that's how that would work. But in this case, I want the current owner's email, right? The mommy or daddy of this pet, and so that's who we're going to send this to. And there's what it says: current owner email, and then it's going to send from the default is the pet owner, so that's going to be the vet's name. Right. So in this case, if we had 10 vets and each pet had a vet that was assigned to it, just like you go to the hospital or the doctor's office and there's 10 doctors, but you only really see one of them. So this would be the doctor that this particular pet sees. So that's who we're going to send it from, right? It's from Jane the vet. And the email from is the default. And then the subject is, hey, and then pet name, or actually it's probably just name. We can check here what the merge field is by typing in, plopping it in here. So yeah, it's just name. Names, birthday is coming up. How about a free fluff and fold? And there you go. This email will automatically go out 7 days before Fluffy's email or Fluffy's birthday to the owner's email address from the veterinarian that is in charge of this particular vet. And that's an hour, guys. I'm going to stop there. I know there's questions. I know there's a million different ways to use this thing. Let's keep the conversation going in the community. Hopefully this is useful and helps you understand kind of how this all works together. There are literally an unending number of ways to use the power that this kind of feature gives to you. There's a reason that you find this sort of custom objects functionality available in every enterprise grade CRM system. You go to Salesforce, you go to Dynamics, you go to any enterprise level CRM system, this functionality is standard. But for some reason, the small business marketplace thinks that you small business owners are not up to the complexity that this is. It's undeniable. This is a little complex, but the reality is that as a small business, your business still has more than just contacts to deal with a lot of times. And so taking away this functionality really hobbles your ability to manage your data and to create automated processes that actually work. And so you go to basically any one of the systems that you all think are our competitors, and you will not find anything like this. Even up to systems like HubSpot, they'll give you opportunities, they'll give you companies, but you try to go create a new object, and you are basically up a creek without a custom object builder. So we put a lot of power into your hands as a pro user of Ontraport. I understand it's a little complicated, but it's worth it. If you run into challenges, the community loves noodling on kind of how to set this stuff up. So feel free to jump into the Facebook user group, the Ontraport user group on Facebook, and ask your questions. And we're here to help. All right, thanks for joining us today or watching this. and we'll see you later.